Okay, Bible and Daily Lifers, here we are. We are going through the Bible, the whole Bible in a year. And we are now into the historical books. There's 12 of them. We're in the book of Judges. So we did the first 5 books in the law, the Pentateuch, the law of Moses, the Torah, and now we're into the historical books. We did the book of Joshua, where they're going into the land and they take the land. Joshua leads them and they divide it up among the tribes. And now they're living in the land. Now God is their king. They have no earthly king as such. And so they're serving God and God alone. But yet people have a hard time serving God and God alone. And what happens is when people disobey God, then the consequences come upon them. And when the consequences come upon them, what happens? Well, they go into bondage again, and some military leaders, some nation, some king overpowers them, and they cry out to God, and God hears them, and God raises up a deliverer or a judge. And many times these judges are deliverers. They deliver them from the trouble that they've got themselves in. And the cycle is that they're doing okay and they're prospering, and as they're prospering, they forget about God. And then when they forget about God, the consequences come upon them, and their enemies attack them, and their enemies conquer them, and their enemies oppress them, and their enemies enslave them and make life difficult. And God raises up these judges. And after he raises up the judges, then they're free and they serve God again. And the cycle goes over and over again for some 350 to 400 years in the book of Judges. So we've been looking at that cycle and seeing how that happens in Judges. And now we're going to look at a few of the judges. There are a few key judges that we should be looking at in this book. So the way that we've been trying to do it is putting it in perspective with the books that they belong in, the context of the books, the type of literature that it is right now, historical books. And then we try to do an overview of the book, and then we're going to look at key people, key points, key places, key themes. And here we're going to look at some deliverers. The first deliverer that we're going to look at actually is in chapter 4, Deborah. Now there are a few more before that. There's this one guy named Ehud, which is in the previous chapter. Again, what it says of him in chapter 3, verse 12, the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. And then he gathered to himself the people of Ammon, and he went and he defeated Israel, and he took the city of palms. So there you are. It says that God is doing it. Well, God is certainly at least allowing it. He's allowing them to be judged. He's allowing their folly to come upon them. And then he raises up this guy. Now, this guy's an interesting guy. He delivers them with a dagger, essentially. But it's not that he does the delivering. What he does is he goes to this king who they were subject to, this king Eglon, and he gets into his presence, and he's got this little dagger, and it says he was a left-handed man, and he goes in there, and he goes into the presence of him, and he runs the dagger through him. And it says the guy was hugely overweight, and it says that what happened was he put the dagger in there, and it stayed in the guy. He doesn't even pull it out. And so the guy dies, and then Ehud, he sneaks out of there, and Eglon is dead in his chambers, and his attendants are like, leave the guy alone. He's in there. He probably doesn't want to be embarrassed. They say he's probably in the bathroom or something. So they wait, and then they go in there and they find out that he is dead. And so when they find out that the ruling king, the oppressor, is dead, then Israel comes to light. They get excited and they win the battle. They go to fight. So kind of interesting how when the king falls, the people rise. Kind of interesting how one event can turn everything around for everybody. They just needed a little enthusiasm, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of belief, a little bit of confidence that they could in fact do it. So then that brings us to another deliverer though, and this is Deborah. Deborah is the female deliverer. God raised up a female judge, female deliverer, Deborah, to deliver the people. And here's what it says in chapter 4 of Deborah. When Ehud is dead, right, when he had reached with his left hand after that guy was dead, the deliverer, it says that the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. Well, of course, here they go again. The land had rest for, it says for 80 years the land had rest. That's a long time to go at rest and at peace. And keep in mind, there's no king in those days. There's no ruler. They're just serving God. And for 80 years, the land has rest. But when he was dead, the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. Kind of interesting how one person can keep things on track. But conversely, one person can make everything go askew. So the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazar. The commander of his army was Sisera, who dwelt in this place here, Hashmasheth. And so the children of Israel cried out to God. Here it is again, same phrase, crying out to God. They're in bondage, they're crying out to God. Unto the Lord. For Jabin had 900 chariots of iron, and for 20 years he had harshly oppressed the children of Israel. So being oppressed for 20 years, this guy has all of these chariots of iron, has these strong troops, these strong military presence. Now Deborah was a prophetess. The wife of Lapidoth was ruling in Israel at that time. Now, Deborah is judging Israel at that time. Kind of interesting here. And she would sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the mountains of Ephraim, and the children of Israel would come to her for judgment. This woman, Deborah, the prophetess. Prophetess meaning one who speaks for God, right? That's what a prophet does. A prophet speaks for God, speaks the words of God. And they would come to her looking for judgment. And so then she sent and she called for Barak, and tells you the names of who they are and their relatives, and said to them, has not the Lord of Israel commanded, go and deploy the troops at Mount Tabor, take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and the sons of Zebulun, and against you I will deploy Sisera, the commander of Jabin's armies, with his chariots and his multitude at the river Kishon, and I will deliver you into his hands. And Barak said, so here she is, she's directing the military battle. She is Deborah, telling this guy here, Sisera, go in, I'll deploy Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, and he will do this, right? So she deploys him, Barak. She deploys him to go into fight. And Barak said to her, he said, if you go with me, then I'll go, but if you won't go with me, I won't go. So I'll do it. I'll do what you're telling me to do. I'll do what the Lord is telling me to do. But if you don't go with me, I'm not going. I'm not going to do this. So she said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, there'll be no glory for you in the journey you're taking, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hands of a woman. And then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. So she goes with him. She's going to do it. Now, the Lord would have done it through this guy, but for some reason, he shies back. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it unless she does it. You ever say that one? I'll do it if you do it. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up with 10,000 men under his command, and Deborah went up with him. Now, we've been seeing this, that although they're 12 separate tribes, they're one nation. And when they're in trouble, they call upon each other, and they fight together for the one nation, even though they're separate tribes. And so here he's calling up these particular tribes, Zebulun and Naphtali. Verse 11, now when Heber, the Kenite, the children of Horab, the father-in-law of Moses, had separated himself from the Kenites and patched his tent there, they reported to Sisera, they reported to him that Barak, the son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor. So Sisera gathers together all of his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him. And Deborah said to Barak, up. Deborah's directing it. Up, get up, let's go. Let's do this. For this is the day which the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. The Lord's delivering Sisera to you today. And this is Deborah leading the whole military mission, giving all of the guidance, giving all of the leadership. And this guy here, Barak, and she says, has not the Lord gone out before you? The Lord is already there. Well, that's how we want to do it, the Lord going first. And so Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him, and the Lord routed Sisera and all of his chariots and his armies from the sword of Barak, and Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled on foot. And then it's just some other interesting stuff that you really need to read that Deborah does. And then there's the Song of Deborah. She sings a song of victory. So having won in the battle, having delivered them again, in chapter 5, Deborah and Barak sang that song, when the leaders in Israel lead, when the leaders in Israel lead, when the people willingly offer themselves, praise the Lord. There's nothing that can't happen when the leaders are leading and the people are following and the people are willing. Hear, O kings, give ear, O princes. I will sing praise to the Lord. I will sing praise to the Lord, the God of Israel. And then she gives the reasons that they're praising and that they're praying and they're giving glory to God because God has worked the victory through this judge, this deliverer. Again, she's not a judge like sitting on a trial judge. She's a deliverer raised up by God to free them. And what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. We've already talked about it. There's going to be some peace, and there's going to be a time of calm. And then what are the people going to do? Same thing, same thing. And what will God do? They'll cry out, and what will God do? He'll answer and deliver them again. Hey, bless you guys. Love you. Let's keep moving through the Bible.